Thank you, everyone, for being here today for our work session. Today's topic is the Neuse River Resource Recovery Facility, and Erica Bailey is here from Raleigh Water. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor, Manager, and City Council members. My name is Erica Bailey. I'm one of the Assistant Directors within Raleigh Water. I am here today to provide an update on our bioenergy recovery project. This is an exciting project that is going to allow us to sustainably manage our solids that we generated all three of our resource recovery facilities for the long term. The purpose of my presentation today, it is an informational item, is to provide a high-level overview of the project and an update of the project. I will also be providing an update on the projected commissioning schedule, given some recent developments in some of the specific construction process areas. We will also review anticipated future council action items in order to accommodate the updated commissioning schedule. So first, let me start with an overview of the bioenergy recovery project. This is a comprehensive biosolids upgrade that is currently under construction. It is nearing construction completion, and it's being implemented at our Neuse River Resource Recovery Facility. This is the largest of our 3 wastewater treatment plants. We are going to be converting to an advanced anaerobic digestion process. This is an innovative yet proven technology. It is relatively new in the United States, and while we are not the first utility that will be implementing this, we are going to be one of the earlier adopters of this innovative technology. A key element of this project is the energy recovery from the biogas. We will be capturing the energy-rich biogas and treating that to pipeline-grade renewable natural gas standards, and we're going to be utilizing that to fuel our Go Raleigh bus fleet. This element of the project will allow the city to recognize significant progress in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions in our governmental operations. So why are we doing this project? There are multiple drivers, and I'll walk you through each of these. So first, while our current solids handling systems have treated us well and served us well, much of the equipment is approaching the end of its useful life and was in need of upgrade. Second, as our service area continues to grow, our wastewater loading rates are increasing, and we need to expand the system. Next, there is some uncertainty associated with some of our historical solids handling processes from a regulatory perspective, and it is important to us to find and provide a resilient and reliable biosolids management solution that can meet the EPA's strictest standards and produce a high-quality end product that we can beneficially reuse and distribute. And finally, we wanted to identify a biosolids solution that is sustainable and aligns with the city's strategic plan core focus on sustainability and efficiency. So based on a biosolids master plan in which we evaluated multiple alternatives, the bioenergy recovery project was identified as the best fit solid solution for meeting all of these project drivers. I would like to note that this project is a recommended action of part of the Raleigh's Community Climate Action Plan, and it is also supporting one of our strategic plan initiatives by supporting RNG usage in the city buses. The city will recognize multiple benefits from this project, and I want to highlight or walk you through each of these. So first, we anticipate almost a 50% reduction in the volume of solids that we're going to produce following startup of the project compared to what we have historically produced. Next, this process will allow us to produce a very high quality end product that will meet the EPA's strictest standards, called Class A biosolids, and we're going to be able to beneficially reuse that as a soil conditioner. Next, this is considered a net energy or green energy project. What that means is the amount of energy that we produce by producing renewable natural gas is greater than the amount of energy we have to put into the process. We anticipate that we will be able to fuel as many as 70 of the Go Raleigh CNG buses per day. And based on the fuel usage numbers that we've recently received, we actually think that we're going to be able to not only fuel the current entire CNG bus fleet for Go Raleigh, but that we may actually have additional renewable natural gas that we can sell for other transportation purposes in North Carolina. I also mentioned that this project is going to allow us to achieve significant steps in reaching the city's sustainability goals, particularly for greenhouse gas reductions for our municipal operations. We estimate that this project is going to result in an 11% reduction in the city's governmental operations carbon footprint by moving from diesel buses to buses that are fueled by renewable natural gas. And then finally, we anticipate that this project is going to bring significant additional revenue by producing renewable fuel credits that are called renewable identification numbers. It is anticipated that we may see as much as $4 million in additional revenue through the RIN sales. So next, I'd like to focus on where we are at with the construction of this project. This is a multi-year, complex, multi-phase construction project. Construction began in 2019. We are about 92% complete on the solids handling upgrade, so we've made significant progress. I do want to note that this project uses an alternative delivery strategy called a construction manager at risk. The total construction cost is about $204 million. About $183 million of that is the solids handling portion. There's a separate project that is treating the liquid high nitrogen waste stream from the final dewatering step of the solids handling process, and this bid at a later date, and this is called our side stream treatment system, and that's the remainder of that $21 million of the $204 million. We did receive, because of the green energy benefits of this project, we did receive a $50 million zero-interest green infrastructure loan, which provided significant debt service savings on the project. The remainder of the funding is coming through revenue bonds. This is showing a 3D rendering or a visualization of what the project, the Biosolids campus, will look like following completion. And the key takeaway here is that there are multiple different process areas associated with the process. So it starts with a screening process, and then it goes to a pre-dewatering process. Then we have that advanced anaerobic digestion process. That includes a pre-treatment step called thermal hydrolysis that preconditions the solids. Then we have the anaerobic digesters. Then we go to a final dewatering process. Then we have that side stream treatment system that treats the high-strength nitrogen from the final dewatering process. And finally, we have the digester gas treatment system that is producing the renewable natural gas. What you see, so where are we now? What you see here is an aerial of the recent construction site. And if you compare that to the visualization I just showed, they look very similar. That is because we are nearing the end of construction completion. So we actually have most of the equipment in place, and actually 2 of the individual process areas have already been completed, started up, and are in operations. We have other process areas that are near the end of their construction completion, and individual pieces of equipment are currently under testing, and the individual process areas are also under testing. You can also see that we have the final paving and grading also complete. So while we have made much progress in completing construction, the project has experienced delays in specific construction process areas due to a recent challenge with one of our electrical subcontractors. Specifically, the electrical subcontractor in several of the process areas has ultimately ended up defaulting. What I am showing here is a process flow diagram that shows the different areas within the solids handling process from 1 through 7. And the electrical subcontractor that defaulted, I wanted to show where they were relative to the different steps within the process because they're in the earlier steps. So the electrical contractor was working in the areas associated with screening and dewatering, which is number 2 in this process flow diagram, and then with the steam supply and gas upgrading, which is number 3 in the process. So this is going to have an impact on the overall anticipated commissioning schedule. And the reason for this is because startup of the solids handling process is much like a domino train. So each domino each step has to be completed before the next domino can then go. So since this electrical subcontractor default is associated with 2 of the early areas, namely number 2 and number 3, because of that means that the later solids handling process cannot be started up until these earlier processes are completed, tested, and commissioned. I do want to note that the construction team worked very closely with the electrical subcontractor to try to help them to complete the project, but ultimately the subcontractor did default and did have to be replaced with another electrical subcontractor, but we have done that at this point. So the subcontractor's bonding company is supporting completion of the project. So overall, this is going to have an impact on our anticipated commissioning schedule, which I have highlighted here in this table. So this shows where we thought the commissioning schedule was earlier this year in May of 2023 compared to now in November. So in previous budget projections, we assumed that the majority of the solids handling systems would be started up by the end of calendar year 2023. We now know that it looks like the initial solids startup is going to occur in spring of 2024 and continue through summer of 2024. So this is going to have impacts on items that we need to complete in order to finish up the project. And before I go through those projected additional council items, I wanted to once again just highlight, because I know that I went through a lot of different benefits, but just highlight that ultimately when we start up the project, we are going to recognize multiple and many benefits from this project. So as I mentioned, we do anticipate that we will have several future council actions required to accommodate the updated commissioning schedule, and I want to walk you through each of these. So the first item is related to continuing to meet our solids hauling and disposal needs through the end of the bioenergy construction project. So you may remember that in May 2023, Council approved amendments with our existing contracts with McGill Environmental Systems and Waste Industries to accommodate a one-year extension to meet our solids handling needs through the end of the bioenergy recovery project. At that time, we thought the core of the solids handling processes would be started up by the end of calendar year 23, but we now know that that won't occur until the end of calendar year 24. So the budget transfer that we requested in May assumed that we would be started up by the end of calendar year 24. So we need additional budget transfers totaling $3.5 million to fund additional operating expenses associated with continuing to haul and dispose of our biosolids through the end of fiscal year 24 to accommodate the updated commissioning schedule. Fortunately, the majority of this is going to be able to be covered under our existing operations funds. We have $3 million in unused chemical funds associated with the bioenergy recovery project. Since we haven't started it up, we haven't used those funds yet, so we will be able to use those unutilized funds. We will need an additional $500,000 of funds, and those are proposed to come from contingency funds. I do want to note that this top bullet is on the transfer request is on this afternoon's council agenda. I did also want to note that we have a request for proposals that is currently under advertisement for a new hauling contract. When we brought this forth at the May 2023 agenda, we had noted that we were going to proceed forward with advertising for a new hauling contract, and I did want to note that that is in progress. I do want to also note that we will have future contracts that will be required for backup and temporary biosolids disposal outlets once we start up bioenergy. And this is to accommodate when we have planned maintenance shutdowns, which are required annually, or if we have a temporary shutdown of the system. So that's another future council action that is anticipated. And in addition, we also anticipate that we will have, as a future council action item, a future amendment will be required for the professional services contract with the design engineer, specifically to extend our construction administration and inspection services. Right now, we only have a high-level estimate of this, but it's estimated about $4 million for the overall extended services schedule, and that's from the time of the original schedule estimate for the construction project through 2025, which is when the side stream treatment system will be started up. Note that roughly half of this estimate is associated with the 6-month commissioning schedule increase that I highlighted today. The remainder of the extension is associated with contract time that was added as part of a previous change order, as well as contingency for when the final startup completion will occur for side stream treatment. We do also anticipate that funds are going to be needed for preparing a future operations and maintenance manual for the bioenergy recovery project. So in conclusion and closing, we'd like to reiterate that the bioenergy recovery project construction is continuing and to make progress, and that we have made significant progress with the new electrical subcontractor in place. We are looking forward to the successful completion of this exciting project and recognizing the many benefits of the bioenergy recovery project. I'd like to thank you for your time today to provide this update, and I am happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
I knew you would have a question. Councilmember Harrison.
Just a couple of comments. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's incredibly exciting. I used to keep a keychain of Class A biosolids. That was just to have as a conversation starter. Because I think it's so exciting that we can reuse our waste products, and we have to remember we actually have the technology to do so. Like, we are at that point in society, and so to make these investments for the city of Raleigh, it's just huge. I also want to note the estimated 11% reduction in our carbon footprint. That is just huge. I work in on-site wastewater management in parts of the state where we just don't have these kinds of opportunities and regulations in place. So just excited to see where we can go here for the city. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Black, then Councilmember Jones.
Greetings. So where is this biomass and bio stuff coming from?
Sure. So as part of wastewater treatment, solids handling is a large part of our wastewater treatment. So we have the solids that are actually in the influent wastewater that get captured. So that's part of the solids that we generate. But then we also use a biological process to remove the nutrients and organics that are present in the influent wastewater. So that's a biological process where we're creating biological mass. And so those are the two components that make up the solids that are generated as part of wastewater treatment.
Right. So it's coming from the solid waste that we have in our water, and it's not coming from, say, like poultry or turkey?
Correct.
Okay.
It's all coming from the wastewater that the wastewater that we generate. Correct.
That's interesting, because I don't necessarily view biogas as an environmental solution, but if it's coming from our wastewater, and it's specifically because of the ties to environmental racism in other parts of the state, but I was just curious, like, where this would be coming from. Because,
Sure.
Yeah.
So the biogas, so when in an anaerobic digestion process, you have two end products. So you have the solids, so the digested solids on the back end, which we noted can be beneficially reused. And then the other product that can also potentially be beneficially reused as a resource is the biogas. And that is a methane-rich. It has other items in it, but about 60% of it is methane. So if we can capture, that is the piece that we can then reuse as an energy source.
Yeah, I just think it was really important for me to understand the source of where the biogas and the biomass was coming from, and if it was coming from other parts of the state, because I know that's been a solution that's been pushed through the utility, but it's disproportionately impacting communities of color who are like on the front lines to hog and turkey waste.
And
That's
this
all.
would be just from the municipal wastewater.
That was all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation, and thank you guys for being here as well. I was able to tour this facility last week. wow, it was phenomenal. And your presentation answered the questions. Thank you for addressing that this wasn't our consent agenda, because I did have questions about the 3.5 million, and you answered all of those preemptively. So I really appreciate it. But I wanted to give a shout out because they gave a great tour last week, and I hope your granddaughter is doing really well. Awesome. I just want to give a shout out to the department. You guys do great work, and it was a fascinating tour.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Fort?
Excuse me, just a quick question. As it relates to the new hauling contract, do you have to have like a specific certification or skill set to haul this type of material, or is it sort of general?
I may ask a friend to help me with that question.
Hey, John Kivanimi, Raleigh Water Assistant Director over Wastewater Operations. There would be any certified hauler that has CDL Class A tanker endorsements. So those folks will be vetted to make sure that they have experience hauling this type of material.
Okay, and would you anticipate it just being like one company, or would it be multiple companies that would do the
The
hauling?
primary contract would be for one, but for on-call temporary needs, we've talked about in our assessment and reviews about whether having multiple firms that we could call upon, much like we do with other on-call services, might be something we could consider. But the initial advertisement is for a singular firm.
Okay, now, got one more thing. Do we know if there are any MWBE firms that are?
That's part of the advertisement in the RFP is to, so we're hopeful that we're going to be able to draw vendors from the HEB community.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Patton?
Yeah. Hi, thanks for the presentation. Yeah, I just want to also have a little love fest for this. It's not very often that we get to check all of these boxes, that we get to have a positive impact on our climate, save the taxpayers money, and then potentially access new revenue sources. I think that's a lot of boxes to check. So really great props to your team. I was curious about, you mentioned that the amount of CNG we might produce is more than will be needed for the fleet. Are there, beyond the bus fleet, do we look at other ways to use it internally in our system rather than selling it farther afield?
Sure. So, yes, so in terms of originally we thought we would have enough for 70 buses. And then as we've been working with transportation and they've shown us their actual CNG uses, that's where we think we can stretch it further initially. And the reason we're focused on transportation use is because that allows us to qualify for the EPA's Renewable Fuel Standards Program. So that's the program in which we can create those credits that I was referring to, those renewable fuel credits called RINs. So if it's used for other uses other than transportation uses, then because we did have that discussion of, because we could use it to heat buildings or use it to offset other natural gas sources, but we would not be able to qualify for those RIN credits as part of that. So because of that, we've been focusing on other transportation uses within North Carolina.
Got it. So even if we use the lion's share of the product on the transportation cause, if we use any of it for any other type of purpose, we'd lose access to that credit program? We
would only lose access to those credits for what we don't use for transportation purposes. So
I see.
We would get credits for everything we use for the Go Raleigh CNG buses, and then anything else above that we use for transportation purposes. If we use it for something, we use the excess to say heat a building, then that would not qualify under for the RIN credits.
Definitely, thank you. Just a follow-up on that question. If we allow other transit systems to use it, would those credits come to us?
Yes. So the way the EPA's program works is that the sale of the commodity gas, so the sale of the renewable natural gas, the credit or the RIN associated with that can be segregated from that, and then it can be sold separately. So the producer can say, I just want to sell that renewable natural gas for transportation, but I'd still like to keep the RIN credit for marketing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, great work.
Thank you very much.
This is very exciting, and for all the reasons cited. And I didn't know that about you. So you might want to bring that in and have a conversation. Yeah, show and tell. So anyhow, all right, thank you
very
so
much.
much. All right, we will adjourn, and we'll be back at 1 o'clock. Thank you.